back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is time for another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com, and we welcome in the entire gang once again. Josh McQuistion, Eddie Radosevich, Bob Prisbillo. The entire gang is here. We've got media going on this week. We talked to Lincoln Riley yesterday. We'll talk to some more coaches and players today. So we start barreling towards the season, a season I do believe is going to happen at this point. And let's welcome in Josh McQuistion, who's been chasing things down after the summit this weekend, and we can talk about that. I don't know that I really have anything to add about the summit. I think I should just shut up about the summit and just let the summit be the summit. I think I should just shut up about everything.
We're just here for your hot takes. We want them. Give us all the summit
hot takes like COVID's not that bad?
Hey, whoa, very hostile. This is where we're going today?
I'm just going to say we all have stupid takes.
Oh, I've got lots of them.
It's not that bad.
Okay. We're not here for that, message board guy. All right? Fake Gordon Keith, shout out.
If you want to shut everything down until 2021, you're all for it.
I don't want to shut anything down. I'm fine with the way things are right now. I'm not trying to be, one of the guys on the message board that fight over that it's not that bad. We know it's not that. It doesn't matter. It's still going to get shit shut down. Josh is still going to have his kids at home eventually, as much as he doesn't want to. It's still going to spread throughout his school.
There's a rumor going around that until the flu is cured, Carrie doesn't want football to return.
That's not true at all.
That's a rumor I've heard.
I went out yesterday. I returned cable boxes to the Cox store in full PPE, by the way. Well, the Cox store, it's like going to the hospital, I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
It's big corporate, places. Like, that's when people are obeying the mask policy. When you go to a big corporate joint, you know how serious people take the mask stuff. When you go to, for some reason, convenience stores completely immune to mask wearers or not mask wearers. If you have a city ordinance, convenience stores where you go find the people that don't give a shit.
I feel like I've had the exact opposite. Like I go to On Cue religiously every morning, and I feel like every morning I go in there are no people without masks on. It's really weird.
I don't know if it's just a OKC or Houston thing, but I saw someone in a Home Depot yesterday when I was buying a generator. I was in the Home Depot and I saw somebody without a mask inside the store. I can't think of the last time I saw somebody without a mask. It doesn't happen down here.
You get the hard-O's at Home Depot. At the home stores, you get the hard-O's.
Sure.
But Home Depot, do they not have a station when you walk in the store with where they give you masks and hand sanitizer and stuff? Because the one in Norman, entrance and exits, they have stations set up. They make you put a mask on.
Really? No, I've been in stores like that, like Dick's Sporting Goods. I've been in there and they've actually got a setup. But by and large, no. Honestly though, I don't see many of those surgical masks around anymore. Almost everyone's got their own little, thing, whether it's an Astros or just a normal cloth, type deal.
Or Noble Bears.
Yeah. Obviously the Bears, to anybody out there with noble interest, I'd love to have a Noble mask. I'm all for it. So
I only wear masks of 6A programs.
Oh, no.
By the way, that's something to start out with.
I never thought I'd be a 3-mask guy, by the way. I got 3 of them.
I've got one for each of our cars. So anywhere I go, I'm covered.
I just get those 50 packs of the surgical ones.
Oh, that is 100% a pandemic 4 right there.
Carrie, don't you want to make a statement about who you are with your mask?
I don't give a shit, no.
I was waiting for the Sooner Scoop masks to be distributed.
Oh, that would be epic. We could have one for each side of the fence. Like, I don't think it's like it could be on the front of it like Scoop. I don't think this shit's that serious, but I'll wear it to get my food. And then the other side, like, wear this or we're all gonna die.
Should we make them like, let us tailgate, you fuckers?
Oh, that would be so great.
David,
that would be
I said
perfect.
yesterday, David Bourne killed tailgating a long time ago. I don't know why that was news yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. It wasn't wholly accurate. He just killed tailgating on Lindsay.
That was the tailgating scene.
That does feel a little like semantics.
Well, I mean, considering someone that parks in Sarkey's energy lot, I mean, I pass a lot of tailgating.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that moved over there though after the Lindsay stuff, did it not?
That corner at what is that street there? Jenkins and I don't know where the train you go over the train tracks there. That short street. That has always been a pretty good corner for tailgating on both sides.
No doubt.
But yeah, I mean, losing Lindsay. Like, I remember the Tennessee game, like, that was nuts, that game. I mean, the tailgating was just out of control awesome for that Tennessee game. But, yeah, I hate losing Lindsay. That was a great tradition. I mean,
you're talking there like over on Page Street.
And what does it matter now? Yeah, what does it matter now? They've frosted over the windows. They can't even see. You're not going to be bothering anyone.
I'm sure there's one of Bourne's National Merit Scholars is probably fucking studying for a final in September. And you don't want to interfere with them on a Saturday morning.
Well, I guess now you really have people that don't care about football if they live in those, since they can't watch practice.
They probably, to be quite honest with you, the people that living over there nowadays probably don't even know that OU plays football.
I thought that those were supposed to be made for, like, families that are going back to school and stuff.
I think those are the ones a little bit further south.
Yeah, that's where the Cross Center.
Okay.
The ones that are the ones that are even more empty than the Honors College.
Oh God. Yeah, dormitories not a good the dormitories were suffering from COVID way before COVID was invented.
Yeah, it's called syphilis.
But no, I kind of assumed that. I mean, I didn't think they would allow people to tailgate because you can't control that. And let's face it, people would have shown up in droves just to be outside the stadium. There would have been no social distancing, probably not a lot of masks because people would have been eating and drinking. So it would have been ugly. It would have just been, I think the cops would have been over there breaking stuff up all the time.
You know what's funny is like technically tailgating, yes, it has been, I guess, canceled for the 2020 football season, but like that's not going to stop people from having yard parties in the neighborhood surrounding the campus. It's just not on campus. Like as far as I understand it, fraternities and sororities, like especially in South Creek, that's not on campus. You can tailgate as much as you want over there. But so and then what do you do with Campus Corner? Like they're going to have some type of restrictions, or that is going to be a festival over there, north and south of the stadium. And I guess it just depends on what the game day atmosphere is like.
I mean, they're not going to have the Walk of Champions or whatever. What do they call it? Is that what it is?
And I would normally shit on something like that, but there's a lot of people that would walk over there for that.
Yeah, it became a big deal.
Sure.
And it was a big deal for the players, just to kind of dress up. I mean, that's when we found out Orlando Brown really cared about fashion. And, CeeDee Lamb would always dress. I mean, CeeDee Lamb and Hollywood Brown wearing their Biletnikoff jerseys. I mean, that was pretty cool.
No doubt. No doubt.
So there was always something to talk to guys about after the game. I mean, Eddie, one of your famous press conference moments was with Kyler Murray in his Tiger shirt.
Yeah, that was after the game, but
I'm saying he dressed up because of the Walk of Champions.
Sure, yeah, for sure. And, the other thing about it, too, is shit, with as locked down as they are around there, it's nice to know who's getting on and off the bus. I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good way to double check.
Well, and that's, I don't know. We should find out something on like media policies this week. But from what I'm told, it doesn't sound like what we've been told. It doesn't sound like there's going to be many media allowed on the road this year, like in press boxes, like visiting media. Like maybe just a few seats.
I mean, you got to zigzag basically, right? Just zigzag upper, lower.
Well, and you got to take care of your own too. I mean, I agree with that. Like the people that cover the team, you're going to have reduced capacity anyway. I know fans don't care about this stuff, but it's just one of those things. Like I asked Lincoln Riley yesterday, like what don't we think about that you have to deal with that takes up a lot of your time? And he said, well, I get a schedule in the morning and 5 minutes later I wad it up and throw it in the trash. Like our days are like that a lot. Like we scramble to figure out what time we're doing the podcast, what day we're doing the podcast, because we're waiting to find out if we're going to talk to coaches. It's like we don't know. Usually we've never known. This is the first week when we've had advance notice that we've had interviews. Like usually it's, we may have Lincoln this afternoon. I'll let you know. And then, an hour before it's like, okay, we're on for Lincoln this afternoon. Like it's just been mass chaos.
I feel like every day I wake up in one of those things that, not a simulation, but I told Bob the other day, like we went to a high school practice and it's like, I feel like we're just doing this because we should be doing this, but I don't feel like anybody actually believes that we're going to get this done in 3 months. You know what I mean? It's
I've been right there with you.
It's good to go through the song and dance, but I don't feel like what's at the end of the tunnel? I don't know. And I think that is why it feels so weird for everybody.
And I think the other thing is like, it's hard for me to get excited to talk to you about previewing OU football when I really don't know, like, who else besides Kennedy Brooks might opt out before we get to the start. Like, and that's the thing, like, people could play a game and then opt out. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility either. Like, if someone goes out there and the first game gets played and 7 people come down with COVID, someone could say, I'm done with this shit. I'm just going to sit out the rest of the year.
I feel like such a shitty person for thinking like, I don't know, that some of these guys just are using the COVID as an excuse. I honestly, like, I feel
you mean across the country
wrong to think like that.
We had a guy opt in yesterday.
Sure.
Who had opted out for Vanderbilt.
And maybe he talked to doctors. Maybe he did, like he literally did his own research.
Maybe he talked to agents.
I feel like there's some peer pressure a part of that too.
Maybe somebody in the NFL said, yeah, you're not going to be drafted unless you have some more film.
Which is very fair. Like with the Kennedy Brooks situation, it's just, it's strange to me. And I hate that I feel that way. But with him being the only guy, I guess I would like to know what his thought process is. And then on top of that, are you really thinking about coming back? So why would you opt out? I don't know. I guess it's because there's so many questions still that I don't truly understand it. And the other side of that is I should mind my own fucking business and let him make the decision for himself.
But the strange part is he's opting out, but then he's probably going to come back and play another year. Like, Lincoln won't address that, but that's what the talk is around the whole situation.
Oh, that's a good point, Bob. I mean, Kennedy Brooks technically hasn't announced that he's opting out. So, I'm not saying that Kersey's wrong. I 100% believe that he has told Lincoln Riley that he's opting out. I mean,
well, and Charleston Rambo confirmed it.
Sure. But it's just, it's very strange. I guess, like, selfishly, I need something that goes, oh, that's why he's opting out. That makes sense. I don't know. It's very selfish to think like that. I completely admit that.
No, because you want to know, is he coming back for 2021 or is he leaving and getting ready for the draft? It's a legitimate thing to be wondering. That's why we asked it. And then Lincoln said flat out he's not going to address that stuff. He's not addressing the opt-outs. He's not going to announce them. And it's kind of sort of what Bob Stoops used to always say. I'm just going to focus on who is here. That was sort of the tone of Riley, I thought, from yesterday.
Was that onion that get you? Was that the famous line?
I don't know if it was with Chijoke or not.
Oh no, it was with an offensive guy, wasn't it? Because he was like, we can fill the 7.
That was Ahmad Kaba when he first got to Oklahoma.
Kaba, that's it.
He said, I think we can find someone to catch 7 passes.
And to a much lesser extent, it was Quincy Russell, too, because we were asking about him after every practice.
Oh, God. Quincy Russell's a name I haven't heard in literally days, or years, I mean.
Quincy Russell. Probably the only time I hung out and watched a workout inside of a really crappy gym.
It was like in a strip mall, wasn't it?
It was. It was just right next to a highway in San Antonio. It wasn't off 10. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was. I mean, it wasn't like it was just a small little gym. It wasn't, it wasn't like a 24-hour fitness where there's going to be light coming in from everywhere. It was dark and dank, and it was just like
we still have the video. I'll throw it in the podcast thread when we get it out.
Sure.
I felt a little bit like
Josh, the footwork.
I did feel a little bit like we put you in a Julio Jones situation again on that one because he would not talk to anyone. And you couldn't interview him.
It was the only way we were going to get him. Yeah, it was only, and that's fine. I mean, we got an interview and nobody else was getting one, and I'm all for all that, so that's fine. It was an awkward setting, like when I'm watching guys doing like rows from like 3 feet away and trying to like video them, and I'm just
he's like doing footwork among weights and stuff.
The dot or whatever that's on the ground.
Yeah, he was like doing footwork on like plates and
diamond
stuff.
Or whatever.
Yeah, he was just doing footwork around 45-pound plates. I mean,
exactly. It was,
and you know what? Everybody watched that video and like, oh my God, look at that footwork. He is amazing.
Well,
I think it's like the footwork looks great. That's a big body moving the feet well.
Like when you're video, and Eddie knows this too, and I know we've all shot video. When there's like a certain depth when they can just kind of block you out and ignore you, and then there's a certain area when you're too close, and it's almost like their brain can't deal with it. And so he was like, "Do you want to get in on this?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good, man. I've got my video here."
So good.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I would say that would never happen during COVID, but you did go see Brendan Walker and working out with Tom Ward, so.
Laney just came in here. It reminds me as you bring up Brendan Walker. As I was doing that interview, like Laney and I were heading to the airport, like we were leaving, and she had stayed with her grandparents that week I was up there. And so she's literally sitting in the rental car next to me, and I didn't know it until like probably a week ago. She videotaped the entire time that I'm interviewing Brendan, and she just got this video. It's like me with a microphone talking to Brendan. It's like looking through the window of the rental car. It's really great.
Why didn't you include that in the video that you put on the server?
Yeah, you should have uploaded that up to the server.
Like I said, I didn't know it existed. I thought she was watching, one of her shows on her iPad. I had no idea I was getting attention.
Did you delete that video?
No. We could probably make that public.
It's
fine. Yeah, I mean, there's the people can look behind the curtain. It's a little bug stained and tinted, but that's fine.
Can you hear her like crying gently in the background, like Daddy?
No, but it's probably. I mean, it's not like missing Daddy. It's like this is what my dad does for a living. That's embarrassing.
He just interviews other men.
Yeah, the girls across the street, their daddy, he went to space a couple times a year. Cool. My dad does this.
I wish I loved my dad.
Seriously, I wish I wasn't so embarrassed.
I wish my dad made it easy for me to love him.
It could be worse. Butters had to follow his dad to the men's sweat house or whatever.
Butters from South Park?
Yes, from South Park.
Butters.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I don't think I have either.
Oh, your father just likes wrestling. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as like the high school version of that, I mean, I guess there have been a couple of guys, or maybe one guy that said, I'm good, I'm just going to go to college. But like, you're not going to see a whole lot of opt-outs in high school, I don't think.
Well, not among players that can actually play. There's 16 states right now that have moved to spring. So So those players, you're not sure, especially if they want to be a mid-year.
I didn't realize it was that high, 16. Wow.
If you can play in the fall, there haven't been any people that you've seen so far say they don't want to do it.
Yeah. Did Ohio bounce back? Is Ohio one of the 16? I can't remember. I'm kind of putting you on the spot there, Bob. Because the guy that immediately comes to mind for me is Jack Sawyer, the big 5-star DN that's committed to Ohio State. I know he opted out, but I don't know if Ohio.
I believe that's the joke, that the Buckeyes can't play, but high schools can. So yes.
Okay. Yeah. Then okay. But yeah, I mean, and I think there's a couple things involved with that. At the college level, everybody's thinking about the NFL, and they've got to make the best decisions for themselves. At the high school level, it can be guys you grew up with, and they're never going to play another snap of football. And, man, we were going to win state this year. We were going to do this. And obviously they're not doing it without the guy that's going to Ohio State, or they're not doing it without the guy that's going to Oklahoma. So there's a lot of pressure, I'm sure, to be like, dude, if you do this to us, our season, all the stuff we've worked for 4, 8, 10 years is gone.
Does anybody think that for people that don't start playing in the fall, do you still feel like people who try and play in the spring still aren't going to be able to play? Like the Pac-12 will still say, yeah, we're not going to play in the spring either.
Yeah, because what's not going to exist?
Go ahead, Josh.
What's going to have changed? I mean, what will be so dramatically different in January than it is now? I mean, it's not like there's going to – I mean, even if they have a vaccine, it's not going to be produced at the level you need to be like, okay, we're all clear now, or it's not going to have run its course. I mean, this thing's going to keep popping up from place to place. So if you're not going to do it now, I don't think you're going to do it in the spring. I don't think the decision's going to change. And once you've already made that choice, you can't come back and say, oh, well, it's different now. No, it's not. Same choice. You're making the same choice, and you're doing it now because you feel the pressure that you have to do so.
100%. That's kind of the way I feel as well. It just doesn't seem realistic. And you listen to Gabe or you listen to Teddy talk, guys that have played. I appreciate the idea, like somebody like Jeff Braun presenting what he did, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then you get into the fact of, if we get into this situation, into this season, as far as the ACC, the SEC and the Big 12 playing, I think it's going to be a festival come October if we're playing football and everybody else, whether it be in the Big 10 or the Pac-12, isn't. It will become more political than it is now. And, you saw was it the Senator Klobuchar from Minnesota say that she reached out to the Minnesota president to sway the decision as far as, Minnesota not supporting playing football. I'm telling you, I hate that it's gotten to this point, but it is, I would say, 80% political, 20% worried about players' health. Because if that was the case and they really worried about kids getting sick, they wouldn't have had all these kids come back to fucking campus. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and here's where I kind of stand on that thing. Like, people like Eddie that got sick, people that got sick in the summer, like, I got to think come spring, they're going to be fair game to get sick again. Like, if this is just a coronavirus, which existed way before COVID-19, then we all know you can get a coronavirus again. Like, eventually all your antibodies or whatever are going to wear out, and 3, 4, 5 months down the road, you could probably get it again. So all these guys that, all these people that believe in, like, herd immunity and all this, I don't have any medical science back. Nobody knows because we haven't had it long enough, but I got to think like people that have had it will be able to get it again here in 5 months.
Well,
6 months.
That's kind of my argument, Kerry, is if we're shutting sports down, these Big 10 Pac-12 schools don't fucking come talk to me about playing any other sport until we get this figured out. If that's the stance they're taking, they better not even think about playing in 2.5 months or 3 months, whatever it is.
Well, you saw where Bob Bowlesby came out and said, look, if we don't have football, we probably don't have any sports in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess that makes sense, doesn't it?
But can you imagine? I mean, the Big 10 might have made that decision for themselves, that they've just lost all chance to have sports this year.
it is. I mean, it for the first time in a long time, it feels really good to be back in the Big 12 as far as looking at what the Big 10's done. I think what they have done has just become actually kind of a joke. It's sad that the Pac-12 has handled this much better than the Big 10.
Yeah, you wake up every day seeing something with the parents group. I know they had something that went out again this morning.
They write a lot of letters, but they had a chance to actually have a physical presence, and it was like 20 people.
That was even sadder than the reaction of the Big 10 leaders.
It was pretty sad. It was like, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't that impactful.
That probably went
there might have been more cameramen out there than people.
I think no, I 100% think that they were.
So I think Lincoln said this yesterday, that they're getting 8 or 9 people back. They did finally release a COVID report, and it was a little bit alarming because you saw there that they had 17 active cases, and somebody on the board brought up a good point, like the people that get quarantined because of contact tracing, that they just keep them under surveillance, and they may not have tested positive for coronavirus, but a lot of times those are considered active cases by place. If someone works somewhere, like a bigger company, so maybe that's what they were doing. But essentially, you had 17 active cases. You get 8 or 9 back. So let's say you have 11 people still, or 10 people that are out. Would be less than that. 8 or 9 people that are out. And I think the bad part about this, guys, is if you piece things together, we asked Lincoln Riley, Bob, you asked him about the quarterback race yesterday. Between Tanner Mordecai getting a hamstring injury, and then I'm pretty sure he's been in this latest round of coronavirus. Like, he hasn't had that much of an opportunity to win a starting quarterback job in camp. Not that we thought he would win it, but it just doesn't seem like, of all that, you put all that together, guys, like it's been a one-man race this entire time.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about quarterback, and then, Riley just sort of mentioned it's a lot like that for quite a few positions. You can't really have real competitive battles if the practice times vary from group to group. I mean, we all know how that blew up yesterday about how the one position group was down to one person last week. I mean, we can sort of maybe it was quarterback. Like, you need multiple of them on the practice field.
But he said you had to have multiple on the field at the same time, so it had to be like defensive linemen.
But you could in practice, if that's what he's talking. If he's talking about the actual game day, then obviously. It's
I think he was saying when you practice, you have this position has multiple people on the field at one time, like a secondary or a defensive line, like I think that, or an offensive line. I think that's what he was saying. That's what I took out of it.
I took it because when we go watch the 15 minutes, there's 5 different quarterbacks out there. You need multiple ones out there to get through all your reps. So I guess we just took it differently. But we know that, I mean, it can happen that quickly where a position group is gutted, and it's hard to try to determine who should play where when some of these people haven't been doing much of anything for the last 2-3 weeks.
It was funny when they came out with that video that was all wide shots, and it showed a football leaving someone's hand, but you didn't actually see the hand, and then you saw it coming down to nestle in a receiver's hands, but then they never showed the receiver.
You literally couldn't see who threw the ball.
Yeah.
There was stuff that, Carrie, you and I went back and forth, as far as looking at the videos. It's you literally, they position the camera where you cannot see a number on who's blocking who. I've never seen this. I've never seen it as locked down as it is right now. It's, and then to be honest, it's bullshit. It's crazy.
When you had the latest one is Joshua Eaton, Seth McGowan, Ryan Peoples. It's I mean, it still looks all fancy and how they produce things, but it's that's not the guys I expected to see in this type of video.
I'll be honest, hand up. I'll take this one if anybody has a problem with it. It's not even shot well. Like, that's my biggest thing. It's actually what I would say is poor video.
Wow.
I think they should invite Eddie in, let him do the video. We promise we will not use any of the information acquired from that. He will forget all of it.
Eddie will just show up and announce, "I am not going to f up your video like you have been doing."
And I appreciate that they're supplying it. It's better than nothing. But, like, why? I'll say this. I'm not the only person that has noticed that.
I will say this, though, Eddie. From what I know, I'm sure they have some really good shots because they're probably focusing on people like Charleston Rambo and Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner. But Lincoln has to okay that video. So there's probably a lot of really good shots that Lincoln's just like, nope, not showing that because he was running this route, or I don't want to show, him beating this defensive back with his size or something like that, or I don't want to show Jaden Davis's catch-up speed here. So, I mean, like, it's just, who knows?
You're completely right. You're completely right. And I understand that. And again, that's why I say that it's almost gotten to the point of psychotic as far as the lengths that they go, I think are more stressful for them than it is for anybody. Like, they're putting more stress on themselves by, approving what kind of video it is. Maybe instead of not having to approve what kind of video it is, maybe meet with the media for 10 more minutes than 15 minutes on a Tuesday. Rant over.
Yeah. Well, we're getting 3 media opportunities this week. We talked to Lincoln yesterday. We'll talk to Bill Bedenbow and Roy Manning today, which Roy Manning, when you talk to him, it's kind of like me. Like, I'm a jackass on the radio in the mornings, but then I'm a normal guy during interview stuff. So I think we always expect Roy Manning to come in there just yelling, and he's just normal. It's hard to get used to because you only really ever see him just screaming at you on social media. So he'll come in there like normal.
You might have heard something. I was looking at the Trey Brown video.
Yeah, I did hear some screaming. I thought maybe.
And they don't show the quarterback. They hide the quarterback's number, who ends up getting picked off by Trey Brown.
You think maybe they're using all their time, Eddie, using digital technology to obscure numbers?
I mean, they seriously might. I would just say anything goes over there right now.
They just have an After Effects expert in the offices now that just changes numbers. I just don't
understand why they have to be so secretive. It just is. It weirds me out.
If like, people want to be a part of the program,
people want to know what's happening at practice, and they just build a big ass wall around it. I don't know. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
And then that leads to things like Jaden Hazelwood. But at least we got some clarification on that. And I let Kerry take that one.
Yeah, I haven't exactly. I don't know what to make of this thing. Half of it's a bored joke, and half of it is just a crazy person. I mean, 2 or 3 crazy, like that's where I don't know, Josh. I mean, Josh is He's a better translator of message board ass hattery than I am.
People are just giving you shit.
I mean, a lot of people are. I understand that. But there are legitimately people that feel like we are hiding information about Jaden Hazelwood. And people have let social media drive them insane. They really have. Because
I think that just goes back to everything around the secrecy of the program.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what it is, I'm sure.
I think you get a blend of, honestly, you've got people that they need every minute detail. And if they don't have it, then it's like reasonable doubt. It gives them a ability. Well, I don't know that Jaden Hazelwood had surgery, so I'm not sure if I even trust the whole idea of that he was hurt, or I don't know exactly what his surgery was or who his surgeon was.
And the report was never Jaden Hazelwood has had a torn ACL and he's having surgery. Like,
I know, and that's what it is. And the thing that, and guys, I don't know about you all, but I have to remind myself of this sometimes. And this isn't like, I'm not down on the fans for this at all. Like, I understand where it comes from, but I think sometimes there is this belief that when they want to know something, we just get to call whoever up, and they're going to be like, yeah, let me tell you all about that. Let's go into minute detail on this thing that we really don't want out there in the public and serves no purpose for everyone to know about. Like, it doesn't work like that, guys. Like, it's one of these things where, people will be like, well, Josh, who committed or who decommitted? Do you really think any sources that I talked to really want to go into a decommitment, like, or why it happened or what happened, or if someone, on the staff maybe made a wrong step or something? Nobody wants to have that conversation. Nobody wants to talk about that. So then you're relying on, well, the player or something like that. Well, then you get into different motivations and what can be there. And I mean, it's all of these things where I don't think people understand that there are so many lenses you've got to look at this stuff through. And like you said, Kerry, with the Hazelwood story, we never reported that it was anything in particular. We reported there was an injury.
I reported it was an ACL injury.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, there's no, like I said, it's hard to get into that because people want there to be all the details. And guys, there's a whole bunch of reasons, whether publicly with Lincoln Riley or privately, people aren't going to want to talk about that. They're not going to go into great detail on that. And so you run into some of these problems, and it's just a reality that, guys, you look at it. I mean, we've had people, Dennis Simmons, like we joked about it on last week's pod, pretty much confirmed it. Like, I mean, he conceded, like, we're not going to talk about injuries. And then Lincoln Riley's, admitting that he's not doing anything. Why does it matter exactly when he, I don't know. Like,
well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, if we had been to a 15-minute, it's everything. Like, COVID is just f***ed up everything. Like, if we had normal practices and we had been out there for our photo session, we would have seen that Jaden Hazelwood was not suited out, was not practicing. Like, that could have been the end of it. But because we're in COVID, and this is kind of, it goes with everything, like what Eddie's saying, coaches, one of their biggest jobs is not to tell the media anything that is sensitive information. And Lincoln views injury information highly sensitive, even more so than Bob Stoops did. Like, Bob Stoops, if he knew somebody we've talked about this before, if he knew somebody tore an ACL and they were going to have surgery and be out for the season, he'd be like, yeah, unfortunately, he tore his ACL. He's done for the year. Lincoln won't do that. Like, he'll just be like, well, he had an injury in his lower half of his body, somewhere below the waist. And,
I'm not saying that. Like, Lincoln doesn't need to, like, come out every week and it's like, all right, here's the list of injuries that won't be playing this weekend. So, and broadcasting it to everybody they're playing. But to just act like, somebody that got hurt during the summer, like there's a suspicion around it, like, oh, well, maybe they could come back. I honestly think it does a little bit of a disservice to the fan base, but
no, it does. It drives them crazy, and it's a disservice to us because we have to deal with it. Because even when we report, yeah, he's injured, he's going to miss some significant time, then they convince themselves, well, is he really hurt? Because I saw on social media that this happened. But what it's done is and I referred to it as this new kind of era of informational paparazzi where, look, we know the coaches don't want to tell us information. Now, we all have sources where we can go through back channels and find out some things here and there. And, that information we feel is pretty accurate. But then you have this, whole new breed of people that are out there like, you know what? I don't appreciate that you guys can't get the information that I want. So I'm going to go through severe channels. I'm going to go through befriending players and trying to get that info that way, which we know we're not supposed to do. It's just unethical. It's not part of, every time that's ever happened, somebody over years and years, every time somebody's with it. Remember, Trevor Knight's mom was on Facebook and she confirmed that he had a knee injury, and Josh Heupel called her and made her take it down. Like, the coaches put the fear of God into parents, like, don't talk about injuries to the media. So you have all it's been, ingrained in us. Like, that's not how you go about getting injury information. But you have all this informational paparazzi that's willing to do all these things now and break rules, and whether it's, give kids rides, which has been rumored to happen, or, go play golf with them. I'm sorry, I said it. I'm just not going to, whatever. Like, that's stuff that's over the line that will get you fired if you're working for a reputable company. So it's a different age, and I understand there's a lot of information out there, and people feel like they can get more information. The problem is you can't get credible information. You can get more information, but it's not always credible, and we're now living in an age where people don't care if information is credible or not. They just want information. Just like they want an out-of-context photo of, a celebrity walking down the street with their dog walker, and then all of a sudden it's an affair or whatever.
Part of this particular one is because of how Hazelwood has presented everything.
And I think he likes screwing with people on social media.
Because there's been some that say minor setback for a major comeback, or they post their hospital picture, things of that nature to kind of let you know, okay, we know you're hurt. We know you're on the way back.
Like TJ Pledger posted a picture of himself after surgery last year when he had his wrist thing. We all knew, like, okay, it's something really serious.
Marcus Hicks, the same way.
Yeah.
Caleb Kelly mentioned, he got into the business school and he got a new knee again. Like, there's usually people can be forthcoming if they choose to be. With Hazelwood, he's been the complete opposite. Almost, I'm not saying trying to trick, but it's almost like he wants to convince himself that he's closer to being back than what he really is.
Yeah, he's lifting weights, he's doing all this stuff. He's riding a bike. I never saw that video, by the way. And he's posting photos of, like, him running routes, and then he's putting on there, not from today, like, and then he's got, friends of his that are like, oh, you won't believe what this video of Jaden was today. Like, it's been this constant, trickery that's made people believe that maybe he's not really hurt. So it's just, it's what you deal with these days. But Lincoln said he's not practicing. So
just real quick on the Hazelwood thing, I would maybe even point out too that the guy has 81,000 followers on Instagram. I would imagine that there's a little bit of pressure put with, I don't want to say like building a brand, but I don't think I would go days without tweeting. It's just kind of like you got to produce content somehow. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it.
No, I think that's right. I think that's part of it. So I like to say we can finally put that to rest, but I don't think it'll ever be put. I don't think people will let it be put to rest.
We need to get a copy of all his doctor's appointments, and at that point, maybe people will fully buy in.
Yeah, that wouldn't be violating HIPAA, would it?
I love stalking somebody.
I love stalking people.
I'm not above it. I'll just start following them around.
But
unmarked car, the whole bit.
We're not buying you a new car.
Oh no, I'll need to get like a blacked out like Pontiac, maybe a little Sunfire or something. Something that I don't mind getting dirty, something that I don't mind maybe having to.
When's the last time you saw
yard of somebody?
When's the last time you saw a Sunfire out on the road?
I don't know if I could tell you what a Sunfire looks like, so I don't know.
Eddie, I have a buddy that has gone into PI work. He'd be happy to, you guys exchange notes here at some time, just kind of, just
awesome.
just the proper way to attack the
You have
situation.
to pay for your own PI work, and you can't tell us. It's just, if you want to keep working here.
Bringing back the bush shot.
I enjoyed that day with
that could have went the wrong way
with DGB. That was I enjoyed that day.
That was
fun.
That was like an all-time memory, I think, because at the time, like, just the whole DGB episode was pretty wild to begin with, wasn't it? I mean, hell, Carrie, we went and saw the kid in high school.
The look on his stepdad's face when we were standing there as they were driving away, like, what the hell had just happened?
It was Kale and Jay Norvell, right? That were with him?
Right, uh-huh. And what did Jay said something as he was driving off? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was something. I think it was something to the effect of, "You guys really don't have anything else to do today," and it was like, "Nope." And just as I'm like videoing every move that he makes, that and the Kevin Wilson standoff were probably up there as far as Scoop HD investigative reporting.
Man, with that DGB stuff, I just got back into the country from my honeymoon. I thought it was a big joke. I had no clue what anybody was talking about. Like, what the hell is going on?
I mean, it wouldn't have been so surreal if we hadn't already been out to see him. And, he showed up at OU's camp one year with, what's his name, Gunnar Keel. And like, that was kind of like a big paparazzi moment as well. So it's like we had a lot of run-ins with him for a guy that never played a down at OU and actually went to OU for a year.
Maybe kind of sort of one of the most unbelievable stories that's ever out there, knowing that he was part of that 2014, I guess, scout team. Or 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it
Baker,
2014,
Andrews,
right?
Brown. Yeah.
Just talk about an all-time team that
better than the one on the field.
Yeah. He literally never suited up for Oklahoma, right?
Correct.
I would say we have a history. You guys know how I feel about the commitment video, about how it's kind of a curse for guys. Like it never works out. Like R.J. Henderson never worked out. What's his name? The offensive lineman from St. Louis that just transferred again.
Thompson.
Michael Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Thompson,
there's so many.
Darlin Baldwin.
There's so many. Like, name me someone that did a commitment video that actually went on to become like a really big name. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
The best one I can think of is Adrian Ely right now. Like, he did one.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't say he's been a star, but there's a good bit of evidence to say he'll be at least a draft pick.
But I would say Sooner Scoop, we have our own curse too, because not that, like Justice Hansen didn't have a nice career at Arkansas State, but we took more video of him than anyone in history.
I think he's accepted as number one. Who's number two? I'd have to think about that.
I know Chris Robinson is pretty high up there.
Oh, yeah. We had a lot of Robinson stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love the kid, but Justice Hansen, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. He's number one.
Oh,
he may have more than everybody else combined.
Chris Robinson was so widely, like, you saw him a bunch, but we were there the day that Lincoln Riley made him his first quarterback offer. Like, we watched that. We had that entire workout on film.
That's right.
And then he went and worked Sean Robinson out later that day at Grand Prairie High School.
Within that same
I was
time
definitely
frame,
one of those guys that was like, Sean Robinson's going to be a lot better than Chris Robinson.
Within that,
they both suck.
Where is Sean Robinson? Did he transfer? Where did he transfer
that Robinson sucked. He was going to have a good career. He was having a good career.
He's had a good career.
Get out of his own way.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, he'll probably end up on an NFL roster at some point.
A non-quarterback contender that was in that same camp day that you guys are talking about, Robert Barnes. We got a lot of Robert Barnes.
But we didn't see him like multiple times. And he was kind of a late, wasn't he, for as far as the process went, wasn't he kind of a later offer?
No, he got offered before his junior year.
Okay.
That was when you guys saw him was the summer going into his junior year, and I saw him a couple times that year, including one of my all-time favorite clips was him catching like a touchdown over his shoulder, literally right in front of me. I couldn't have been in a better spot, but that was a good.
We saw him play at Union, didn't we?
Yeah, because we were looking at Trey Brown and Obi Ebo, who went to Stanford like the very next day.
That's right.
And,
you remember?
We
waited him out just for him to commit to Stanford.
Wasn't that Zach Farrar too?
Yes.
Yep. Farrar was there as well. Yep.
One guy.
He was just a junior, though, right?
No, he was going into his senior.
He was a year ahead of Robert, wasn't he?
2016. It was Barnes and Trey Brown were both 2017. There was a lot of people watching.
I'll give you another one that we might have cursed. Michael Anoha.
Oh man!
I was actually talking to somebody about him the other night. He's with the Ravens right now. Like he's in camp with them.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Did he finish at UCO?
I was gonna say it's gotta be someone that maybe we identified early, like Stephen Parker. That doesn't do.
Yeah, he got a lot of coverage from us.
So.
God, Bob, do you know that year you, me, and Eddie?
Stephen Parker's been in the league for 3 years. I mean, he's had a very successful professional football career. I know he's on like his 4th team, but he's still hanging around though.
That was one of the coldest state championship games I ever remember watching. That Jinx Union game where the three of us, and Bob wasn't working for us at that time, but Eddie, Bob, and I are sitting there after the game waiting for Stephen. And he kept telling us he was going to come. And I think Eddie and I finally were like, "F it, we're done. Like we're going home. This is not worth it. I'll drive back up in a week if I have to."
And he never did talk.
I think that's right. I think you messaged me like, yeah, he didn't even show.
Yep.
I was like cold. I couldn't feel my feet. I was cold.
Kerry, I think didn't Awanu, how do you say it?
Michael Anoha.
Anoha. Didn't he finish at Sam Houston?
That might be
Texas
right.
State,
Commerce, wasn't it?
Oh, Texas A&M Commerce.
Texas A&M Commerce. That is right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Like Hatari Bird, Michael Anoha.
Well, didn't he go sell cars like after he left OU for a while or something?
He did. I knew it, like, because I had written him off at that point. Yeah, like I totally forgot about him from there, and then it was this summer. I was looking around. I was like, "Did you guys see this?" And I remember sending it to you, and I was like, "Man, I must have just missed this." And I think all of us were like, kind of a holy shit moment. I forgot about him.
You know who might be who can vie for number 2? Jace McClellan.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to see how his career pans out, but it doesn't look good with the amount of video we took of him in high school.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well for him, that's for sure. Because I saw him as a freshman. I know we got tape of 2 different games as a sophomore, because that was the thing. Not only would I always make a point to catch him in the season because he was so highly rated and he was a big-time guy, but Alito went so much deeper in the playoffs than everybody else that I ended up catching him in the playoffs too. So I'd catch him a couple times a year. And then at that one point he was playing with Chuck Filiaga, so there was even more reason to go see him. So I think that one year, I think I saw him 3 times. I think I saw him early in the season when he got hurt, and then I saw him in the first round of the playoffs, and Alito beat, God, who was it? Grapevine. They beat the hell out of Grapevine. And then I saw him, I think, in the state semis again.
And he was one of the first guys, Eddie, that we did our live cam with, our backpack with.
Yeah, down at Jury World, right?
Yeah.
In the state semis?
Yep.
And then he decommitted like 6 days later.
Yep.
He or Chris Robinson are number 2. Yeah.
Stayed through the whole game, asked him afterward if he wanted to do an interview and talk a little bit about his situation with OU. Nah, I don't think I want to talk about that right now. It's like, okay, I think we know where this is going.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the Sooner Summit. No longer crapping on it. Look, I was texting with Carl Williams this morning. I've texted with him off and on since Friday. No, we did a shitty job of covering it. It wasn't because we thought it was stupid or we didn't care or we were mad or anything like that. We just didn't do a good job covering it. We didn't do a good enough job getting down there and talking to kids while they were here in Norman. We were never going to go out and be a part of any festivities or anything like that. It was like, I would say this, John Hoover did a great job just coming down, getting interviews, and leaving. That's what you do. That's how media works. You just report on the process. You're not part of the process. But give it up to Carl, to Caleb. I can't believe they pulled it off as much as they did. They did a fantastic job. I'm going to talk to Carl about that on Friday, just about the process and putting it together. And my mea culpa to you is I'll write the story. I'll do a big feature on it. Because, guys, I'll admit I didn't see it happening. I can't imagine. I never could have imagined they pulled it off like they did. It just seems like it ended up being a tremendous event.
Yeah, well, it happened. You had all those maybes and ifs, and they all came through. Savion Bird, Kamar Wheaton, like all the guys would expect. Oh, he couldn't get a ride up. Oh, he had something come up, so he couldn't make the trip. None of that happened. The weekend went off exactly the way that they were hoping that it would. And I was like, as long as they followed the NCAA rules to a T, there's really not much that can be done here. I mean, there's a lot of sour grapes, clearly, from other schools and people like that. But if they followed the rules, there's nothing you can really say except, man, I wish we would have thought of that. And, when people bring up, I think the Jamar Kane tweet gets brought up a lot from Saturday night about watching the NBA playoff game in the stadium. But those kids were at the Collective. Like, that's one of the things, because they were out in public for people to see. It's pretty obvious to, connect the dots and say, wait a minute, they weren't in Norman. They weren't with the players or the coaches. They were doing their own thing. They did exactly what they set out to do in the correct manner that they had to do it.
And we had a copy. One of the players had sent us the itinerary. Just looking at the itinerary, there was nothing on there that, indicated, meet with the coaches or anything. I mean, nothing like that. Like, apparently there was a FaceTime. Well, there was a FaceTime with Lincoln Riley when they were back at the hotel later that night. But Saturday they ate lunch at the Garage downtown in Norman. Then they, like I said, they went to the Collective in Oklahoma City on Saturday night. A lot of people freaked out because they had a picture on the field, but let's be honest, guys. We know the stadium. I mean, they've always kind of let people walk through the stadium. And you have so many people this time of year coming in and out. I mean, employees park underneath the stadium. I mean, all you have to do is duck under a gate if you want to. I mean, I'm not trying to tell everybody how to get on the field here, but there's usually a gate open that you walk through on one side, like on the west side, and then the east side has a gate open.
You just have to find one.
You just have to find one. Yeah, I mean, it's not like where. Fort Knox.
Just keep looking.
Yeah. And so they found one. They got on the field, but
I did that for Brittany's maternity photos. We just kept looking for a gate that was open, and we finally found one, and we took some in the empty stadium. It's not that hard.
God, you homer.
Sounds like you broke into the stadium.
And nobody wanted to believe it.
I won't step onto the field because I'm afraid of those alarms. I don't know if those alarms are legit, but I will not walk onto the field because I always heard stories that the alarms go off and they come and get you.
I mean, I think that's one of those situations that they don't want you, like, breaking out an OU flag football game down on the field. But I think if you go in there, take a picture real quick and leave, and especially if you maybe have 5 stars, they don't send the Norman Police Department over there.
Well, and then the rugby fields, they took a picture out there. But, guys, that's just wide open spaces. I mean, there's nobody out at the rugby fields for 90% of the day. I mean, they practice out there. But again, it's not Fort Knox. I mean, the coaches drive their cars into that field. There's a big gravel lot where they park. So those gates are always open. I mean, anybody can go out there. So it's not like now, did they go out there and watch practice? Like, I don't think that they were invited in to watch practice. If they watched practice, they would have watched it from the parking lot.
That's sort of what Tristan Lee implied. We watched it from a safe distance, far away. That was kind of what he told Adam Friedman.
But I think it's like everything else. It's like if you're an A&M fan or you're a Texas fan, you build it up in your mind like, there's no way that this could have happened if the coaches didn't have something to do with it. Well, that's where Carl Williams comes in. I mean, he put it together, and he knew what to do, and he made enough stuff for them to do while they were here that it wasn't just a bunch of guys sitting around twiddling their thumbs.
Well, if you could do this as a coaching staff and get away with it, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that they put together. This was, guys, I can talk to, and that's part of the reason. I mean, these two things are connected. When we talk about, okay, maybe we didn't know all the things we should have known. We weren't as prepared as we should have been. And to be clear, that's on me. I'm fine with that. But you have to acknowledge, if that's the case, at least part of that is because the sources we are accustomed to talking to had nothing to do with it. If they knew everything, we'd have been able to check more and know more and do some things. but that wasn't the case. And that's why, so there's just no question. This was not a sneaky thing that Oklahoma put together or had some, special motive about. Don't get me wrong. It works out great for them, but it's a bit of good fortune because, guys, the reality is and I don't say this to be a shot at the kid, but if Brock Vandegrift was still the quarterback commitment in this class, this weekend never happens. Never.
Correct. And I mean, not only did Caleb, focus on 2021, but I wrote yesterday. I mean, he invited those 2022 Oklahoma high school kids. Now, I don't know if he knew them beforehand or if, the coaching staff said, hey, if you really want to go the next step, Talon Chetron, Gentry Williams, and Jacob Sexton are three guys from our backyard that we'd love to have be part of this class too. And Sexton went to Chalk and Topgolf with them Friday, and then the collective Saturday night, and then Talon and Gentry came around Saturday. And I mean, that's what you do. I mean, it's not saying those three guys are slam dunks for the Sooners, but if you want to put your best foot forward, you have your 5-star quarterback commit from a year that's not with them. Say, hey, you're more than welcome to come hang out with us too. You can tell it meant a lot to those guys to feel like they were part of that group.
Biggest takeaway that I took out of the weekend was the fact that, I think from the outside looking in, it kind of reinforces what I thought as far as you're talking about this class now with a leader in Caleb Williams, a guy that is committed to building a class, to taking the responsibility of the class. I mean, you could start talking about a historic class being put together for the 2021 class. And I guess it makes it more real knowing he's kind of put in a little bit of the legwork, if you will.
Well, and Josh, just break it down. I know, either you or Bob or Adam Friedman has reached out to just about everybody that's attended. I've mentioned I've been talking to Carl through text, Caleb's father. I'm supposed to catch up with him on Friday. But let me ask you, where did this really help OU the most? I mean, obviously, I think you got to start with Kamar Wheaton. He releases a top 3, which is interesting in and of itself, and maybe you could talk about that as well.
Yeah, I think he really, you're going to start in the 2021 class. I mean, there was obviously a good group of guys there. I think the two that probably saw the biggest impact from this weekend were Savion Byrd and Kamar Wheaton. I think Byrd is a guy that it feels like he's close. Like he feels like one of those guys that could go at any time. And it also feels like more and more it's not just Oklahoma sources that are starting to say, okay, Oklahoma's in really good shape here. You're starting to see national guys that that cover programs that Byrd is involved with are starting to hear, okay, I think Oklahoma's kind of stepped out in front here. So I think they're in a good spot with him right now. It's always about momentum. I mean, to me, you've got to find a way to try and close this. But the tough thing is Savion Byrd is clearly a guy that still wants to take trips and take official visits if he can. And he's one of those guys that's still holding out hope that's a possibility. I think we all are pretty much of the opinion that it's not ever going to happen in this class. But it's I'm sure his opinion of, well, what's it hurt to wait? I understand how he feels. So the other is, like I said, is Kamar Wheaton, the number 7 player in the country, number 1 running back. Just an explosive guy. Really, what I got out of talking to some people about him this weekend was just him. He's such a quiet guy. I know people hear me say that sometimes, but this is really true. Kamar Wheaton is very self-contained, is not a guy that is, there's guys that are quiet to me, and then you'll talk to other people and are like, oh, no, he's always kind of the center of attention, whatever he's doing. That's not really who Kamar Wheaton is. And I think with him there was a real chance for him to kind of build some relationships with some guys. He knew Savion Byrd. He, had talked with Caleb Williams before, but this was a chance to really get to know those guys a little bit and know some of the other guys, Tristan Lee included. But, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, and that's why I thought it was important that Colin Montgomery showed up because, like we sort of said last week, to do this right, you have to have the mix of targets and commits. And Montgomery, I'm sure he worked hard as he could on Lee and Byrd. without being too overly aggressive where you could turn them off, but enough to say, hey, come join me, come be a part of something special. And I think, you can hear in Cullen's voice how excited he was about what he thinks is about to happen. I mean, this wasn't like, oh, it was a really good trip. This, from talking to a lot of those guys, this was a great trip where the best is still yet to come. And that was the best case scenario from what could go down. And it sounds like it might just work out exactly that way.
Yeah, I agree. Reading Adam Friedman's article and talking to a few sources, it sounds like they just hit it out of the park with Tristan Lee. I think that went extremely, extremely well. And, obviously, again, the nice timing, they offer Aiden Lee, his younger brother, while he's there, kind of get some continuity there, build some excitement to where it's not just about Tristan, and it makes it a big deal for the family. I've talked to some people, and I think really the big factor in this really is going to be his mom. I know she went to LSU, really enjoyed her trip there, really liked the people, not just the coaches and the support staff and some of that stuff, but just the people that they were around inside the stadium. I think there was just a good relationship built there. So Oklahoma has got to kind of weather that storm, and I think what they have in their corner is that he knows more people in Norman. I don't think he has a lot of connection to the players in LSU or at LSU, but with Oklahoma, there's Caleb Williams, there's potentially Jalil Farouk. You've got guys from that area. Obviously now Kelvin Gilliam being part of the class. So there's a lot of things that can work for Oklahoma in that regard. But it does sound very much like this is becoming an LSU-Oklahoma battle for Tristan Lee.
Bob, feel free to take over the recruiting portion if you'd like, if you have some more stuff you want to get to.
Well, we kind of hit it right there. Kelvin Gilliam is another name where it feels like years past, OU finishes second or third, and you think, what might have been had he been a Sooner? But turns out, go back Virginia, once again, second commit from this high school. How big is Gilliam for this defensive class, Josh?
I think you're dead on, Bob. This is a guy that 2 years ago Oklahoma just misses out on. He loves Calvin Thibodeau or he loves Lincoln Riley, but I just want to do this, right? There's some other reason why it doesn't fit for him. And in his case, man, there was just no question for him. I talked to him when we did our interview on Thursday for the story that ended up running on Saturday. And I kind of said, hey, because I don't ever want to be presumptuous, but I figure when the kid's talking to me to do his pre-interview, I kind of know what the story is. And I said, hey, so what's it going to be? I think I know, but why don't you tell me? And he goes, it's been Oklahoma, And that was kind of the crux of the story, was just him always kind of coming back to Oklahoma. He would kind of talk about other schools. I liked Penn State, and I liked Cal, and I liked Florida. But it always seemed like for him, it just came back to Oklahoma and his relationship with Calvin Thibodeau, his relationship with the rest of the staff. Like, you could just tell there was a lot of familiarity from the top down with him, and I think he liked that a lot. And I think a lot of it started with that virtual visit. I think that's really when Oklahoma went from a school he liked to maybe that's the place for me. So, I think he's a huge get for OU. He gives OU a bunch of versatility up front. I think he could play the 4-tech. He could play the 5-tech. For those that don't follow it, he could play the Jalen Redmond role. He could play the Ronnie Perkins role. He can move around and do a lot of things. And honestly, if he was a guy that came to campus and just, his frame filled out, he looks kind of lean in his lower body, so he could get a lot bigger. Maybe he moves inside completely, and can play some nose and maybe a pass rushing situation. There's a lot you can do with Kelvin Gilliam, and I think that's one of the things that Alex Grinch and, Lincoln Riley, Jamar Cain, Calvin Thibodeau, the whole crew, I think that's what they liked about him, is that they can move him around. And, when he's on the field, he doesn't tip anything to the defense because he can throw a lot of different looks, or they can throw a lot of different looks with him on the field.
Josh, you'd be the perfect person to ask this, but just from the videos that I've seen with him, like with on-camera interviews, with the quotes that he gave, the story that you wrote, he gives very Gerald McCoy vibe as far as personality.
I can flat out tell you, guys, we've talked before about, should we bring a recruit onto the podcast? Or is it entertaining when people enjoy it? Kelvin Gilliam is one of the few guys that I would say, yeah, you could bring him on, no problem. Kelvin Gilliam is outgoing. He's always upbeat. He's just a really, really easy guy to talk to. And kind of one of those guys where I'll be like, hey, we're going to talk for 10, 15 minutes. That's all I need. And then it ends up being like 20, 25, and it wasn't supposed to be. It just, you get to where you're just conversing with the guy rather than actually really doing an interview. And so he's very natural in that way. Is a guy that, you guys and, maybe I'll put a good word in for, Kersey with Gilliam. But by and large, I mean, he's a guy you guys are going to love to stick a microphone in his face and just let him go.
Virginia doesn't have a season. We could get him on the pod.
We absolutely could. Yeah, no, I'm trying to work out a time where I can go see both him and DeMond. Hopefully see Tristan Lee. Maybe even get up to where I can see Caleb Williams and Jalil Farouk. If we can work all those things out, that would be a pretty hellacious trip. And really, it's doable because like I said, Oklahoma and DMV is all of a sudden a real presence.
And I'll end it here for this part and just say Lincoln Riley's finally got me. He got me Saturday night. I don't know if that O was for Gilliam or for someone else. Then Eyes came out Sunday night. But now we think we might have a little idea about the Eyes. Still feel good about our theory that Eyes means 2022. But the O, the I, he's just doing what he does. And I'm sure he'll put that pawn up soon enough, and it'll be about playing chess again.
I know there's been a whole bunch of rumors. My understanding is that one commitment has happened. I don't think it was connected to the O. I still maintain that O almost had to have been Kelvin Gilliam, from what I can understand.
Within 45 minutes of his commitment. That's why I
know
thought it was Gilliam.
The timing is just unlikely and unusual, and I can't find an answer that makes any sense beyond that. I will say, from some of the sources I talked to, I don't think Bob's the only one that's totally confused on the O's and the I's. There are a lot of kind of just like shrugs when I talk to people. Like I think Lincoln Riley's having fun messing with people. I think there's absolutely some element of that. And the other thing I will say is a commitment has definitely happened to my understanding. And I think another player is very, very, very close. So has kind of, I will say this, has gone through the process of asking for some edits, some of those things. To my knowledge, has not actually told OU he is coming, but usually, it's one or the other comes first, and the edits seem to have come up. So we'll see where that goes. But I think, Oklahoma, I wouldn't say I expect anything before the end of this month. But by the time OU kicks off, if the season goes as currently scheduled, it wouldn't shock me if there was a couple more commitments in the bag.
All right. One thing I wanted to ask you guys about before we get out of here. Does anybody else understand exactly what the Associated Press is trying to do right now?
No.
I didn't have a problem with the way that they did the AP Top 25. I mean, it's stupid, but it didn't bother me. Including somebody, and I hate to just bag on the kid, but including somebody like a Micah Parson on the AP preseason team, in which he never even planned on playing the season, that bugs me because, in a way, I kind of think it takes away from a kid that is going to play. Like the personal recognition, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm being soft about that.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, it's not like he's up in the air or he's working on it and there's rumors. Right. He's absolutely not going to play. And there's some other. I mean,
planned on playing.
And it's not like there's not plenty of good options out there. There's a lot of really good linebackers you could choose from. I don't know what. And I'm one, guys, and it's funny. I feel like Eddie and I are always on the opposite side of these things. I think the including teams that are not playing is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like I don't.
I do too. I do.
What are we trying to rank? What's like if it doesn't matter if we're playing, then why the rankings don't matter? It's
And how does Ohio State ever fall from number 2? Like,
yes.
They're just going to be this mythical team that, like, can do no wrong, and no matter what happens, they're always going to reside there at number 2 or number 1.
Well, what if Ohio State had started at number 1? They're your national champions at the end of the year. I mean, we know nobody drops when they don't lose.
Well, I think
especially from the number 1 spot.
That's what I said. Like, if Clemson's number 1, they lose, then the Buckeyes are number 1.
Oh, God, that'd be amazing. The first winless national champion in the history of college football.
Actually, the first national champions that can't play each other.
Texas A&M would be really jealous.
Yeah, if Texas A&M,
are they not going to be ranking teams that are actually playing, like, once like September 12th or 15th hits? Are they not going to be dropping those teams out of the rankings?
I don't know.
Hope. If A&M or
I thought that's the way it was going.
I kind of thought
that it is stupid.
I thought that, Eddie, but I think it might be up to the voters who are still voting.
Well, they should take, if you're voting for teams that aren't playing this season, take your fucking vote away. Like, those are the people
They already voted for teams that aren't playing.
The AP directed people to vote for teams even if they aren't playing. That was a directive from the Associated Press.
See, I thought that was just like a one-time deal with the preseason. Maybe I'm dumb for thinking that, but those are the types of people that probably need their AP vote taken away.
Well,
those are the types of people that vote for Heisman with 6 weeks left in the season.
Or vote for Notre Dame starting quarterback every year. He ends up in their top 3.
Sure.
It's been a while since that's been a problem, though.
Yeah. You have to have a functional one.
I think Ron Powell has killed that.
Well, I mean, somewhere here in Albino, they're still talking.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I mean, it's hopefully that self-remedies as, the season starts and those teams aren't playing. And people will just be like, okay, I don't care what the AP says. I'm not voting for Ohio State number 2 anymore.
So with that in mind, this is an important one. Who's going to be the team that ends up at like number 15 that has in no year, any other year in history, would they get anywhere near this number? But they're going to run off a bunch of wins early against maybe some crap teams. Their schedule works out nicely. And the fact that they don't have to worry about teams from the Pac-12 or the Big Ten taking spots. Who's that team that's going to sneak up on everybody and be like, oh, yeah, no, they're shitty, but there's nobody else to vote for?
I don't know if they're shitty, but I think Army's going to go undefeated.
Yeah.
Breaker. What's going on there?
I thought I heard a vibrator. I was confused.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it's all crazy. I hopefully it will sort itself out, but it's just it just kind of shows you how weird everything is right now. I just want to get to a first game. I don't care if I'm in the stadium or at home. I just want to see some football. College football. I mean,
we still don't have the time. We don't have its pay-per-view. We all assume it will be. But, I mean, we're 2 weeks away, and we still don't have some of the details like that.
It'll be interesting. We still have to formulate our plans on coverage and exactly how everything's going to work. So we don't even know that yet. But hopefully this week we'll have we're supposed to have more information this week at some point. So that will definitely be good. Outside of that, guys, position stuff, Lincoln Riley seemed to be very happy with his running back room yesterday, gave them a big vote of confidence in terms of, I believe, what did he say? It was one of the best young rooms that he's been around.
It feels like it should be. I mean, they're all 4 of those guys. Like, yeah, it makes sense. They should be a factor for sure. And I think part of it is you're trying to let DeMarco Murray know that you're doing a good job, man. I know these first 6-8 months have been insane on and off the field, but you just keep putting in that work. You've got a really good room, and I know you can get it going.
And like you were talking about earlier, Eddie, we haven't seen a lot of video The little video that we have seen, you had the DeMarco Murray mic'd up with Seth McGowan basically running around an entire defense, and then the video they released either yesterday or the day before had him running unimpeded into the end zone. So it looks like Seth McGowan is doing some impressive things early.
There's a ton to like there, and I think that I came in with it thinking that Seth McGowan was pretty good, just for the fact that every time Josh would go see him, he'd send back videos of him running either an 80-yard touchdown and nobody even coming close to catching him, or it just seemed like every time Josh went and saw him, he had some badass highlights. And I think that it's one of those things that, you know, he reminds me a little bit of maybe a Rodney Anderson-esque. Probably not as big, obviously, but not as physical. But it is certainly interesting that it seems like there are a lot of people that love the way that he runs down there. Out of those three, I am kind of excited to see who ends up getting the most carries. And then even going back into the Marcus Major thing, it's like somebody asked on the board a couple of weeks ago, like, why is there so much hype around him? It's like the guy was building a good freshman season before he ran into the injury problem a year ago. He was a highly rated kid out of high school. Like, why wouldn't people be excited about the possibility of him in this offense?
And he was getting a ton of time in practice, and he was impressing. And that's what I told those guys on that thread. Like, you know, you got to remember, T.J. Pledger had that wrist injury. Trey Sermon was banged up. They only had one really good running back in Kennedy Brooks that was healthy, and they didn't want him in practice getting banged up. So Marcus Major, that's probably why he ended up having shoulder surgeries, because he was taking all the reps in practice, and he was doing really well. So, I think there's a reason to be excited. And let's face it, I mean, I don't put it past, you know, Lincoln Riley to get the NCAA to just say, look, this whole season is insane. Why are we suspending kids who tested positive for weed? And if you get Ramondre Stevenson back, if that for some, like, of all the things that, and this is not I'm not ripping anybody, but all the things fans get upset about, I would think that they would, you know, jump on that train a little bit more about, like, why are guys suspended for weed going into a season like this when it's not that big of a deal anymore? And I know that's Lincoln Riley's hope, but if you get Ramondre Stevenson back, all your problems are solved.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
that becomes
there we
a
go.
really
Gary,
good
you
room.
just started it. You're the one that's going to be. People are going to be asking every day now, has it got overturned by the NCAA? I think the NCAA will rule on that in January of 2021. So we should be able to.
Yeah, that's the problem. The
idea.
NCAA has a lot of other things on their plate that they're worried about, and member institutions are worried about. Then should we just let positive weed tests go?
The NCAA is going to come back and say, we thought he was the guy that transferred to Ohio State. We thought we were fine until January. But now, guys, just real quick, because we touched on DeMarco Murray and people kind of, you know, not sure where to stand on him right now. I currently have Oklahoma forecasted with three running backs. One is the number 1 running back and number 7 overall player in the 2021 class, Kamar Wheaton. One is the number 1 all-purpose back and number 30 overall player, Raleek Brown, who you guys have seen in person and is just scary, scary good. And the other is the number 3 overall running back in the 2022 class, Gavin Sawchuk, who is a legit 10-4 track guy out of Colorado, the exact same high school that produced Christian McCaffrey. So DeMarco Murray's going to be fine. Just give him some time. This is, I admit, I was very interested to see how it would play out. I don't think it's played quite as fast as some people wanted it to. But when I look at what they're doing in 2022 at running back and the position they're putting themselves in, I think they're going to be more than fine.
Yeah, I really like Raleek Brown. I mean, he's really, really good. I mean, he's a small version. To me, from a skill set standpoint, he's a small version of Joe Mixon. A guy that you can split out at receiver, and he can be totally competent out there.
Yeah, he's like he's got some Marquise Brown in him, like that sort of electrifying speed. But at the same time, they're going to put him in the backfield and do some stuff with him there as well. If Oklahoma can land him.
Yeah, I saw your note on that. That was quite a note. So, look, go to the website. We've got, I know we don't have the immediate informational paparazzi stuff over the weekend, so I'm sorry you don't know how Caleb Williams felt about the fried tacos at the Collective. But we've got lots of content and more to come from the weekend. And like I said, yeah, we screwed that up. We should have been better. But we're making up for it. Lots of good content, stuff that you would have gotten regardless of when it was, just good quality information. Bob's done a great job, Adam Friedman, Josh, and then we'll have more with the Williams coming up later this week. So keep checking out the website. Of course, all kinds of interviews going on right now with players and staff as we build towards the season. I do feel like we're going to get there. OU just needs to control these COVID positives a little bit, and they've done a good job in the past, so there's no reason to think that they won't continue to do that. You look at the NFL guys, I mean, it kind of goes to show you there is a big difference when you're getting paid millions of dollars to keep yourself quarantined versus college kids who don't give a shit, and that's not a negative. That's just a fact of life, and Eddie will tell you. Kids are going to party.
The most amazing stat that's out there right now is the city of Tuscaloosa had more positive cases this week than the entire country of Canada. I mean, that's actually the most American thing that's out there right now. There was I think Thamel wrote a pretty good article. It was a few weeks back too about the NFL protocols because he talked to Matt Rule, Mike Vrabel, and Bill O'Brien down in Houston because they have all worked at colleges, and he was basically like the article was basically talking about what are the differences between the NFL and what the college is trying to do, and I mean we're talking about guys' livelihoods at the NFL level.
Yeah,
they're not gonna outside of the dumbass that tried to sneak his girlfriend into the Seahawks camp. Like I think that there's kind of a policing yourself type of responsibility, and to a certain extent, I think that's happening within the college football programs. It's just not happening to Ted the Beta or Eddie the Fiji over wherever. I mean, the biggest hypocritical thing we're doing is making fun of college kids for partying. I would have been doing the same goddamn thing.
I had the saddest social life in college, so I can't say that I would have been doing that. Like,
Same.
I've seen a lot of people been like, yeah, I was working. I played baseball for a couple of years, so I didn't come in, with all my buddies and stuff. So I was a sad college student.
You just have to wonder what this is doing for the Adderall market on campus,
See, I didn't live that life in college. By the way, OU, so just to get it out there, they had 17 positive cases or active cases. That's cut down to almost lower than double digits at this point. Well, less than double digits. So they're starting to get the full squad back. I didn't mention this. Texas Tech reported 21 active cases, which is even worse. But because OU just had like 6 in their latest round, but Tech comes out as like 21, which makes sense because, I mean, I would say Lubbock is the craziest campus in the Big 12, wouldn't you guys? For partying?
Would assume so.
Tech?
Yes.
I mean, Austin's pretty wild. I've always thought every college gets down in its own way. I've always thought. I mean, from experience alone, I would say Lubbock or Stillwater is probably pretty up there. I think people up in Ames probably have a little bit of a drinking problem.
Yeah, no doubt.
We see that every.
Oh, Manhattan. I mean, Aggieville and Manhattan is nuts. I mean, we've been there after games in recent years, and that place is a circus.
If you drink as much Busch Light as the Cyclone fans do, you got some type of problem.
But the one thing that I think went under the radar is Oklahoma State had never released a COVID report other than when their players first checked in. They finally did this week. And they report for their entire athletics department, they had 77 recoveries from COVID. Like, and Eddie, I know you've heard things. I've heard things. I have heard that over 60 of those are in the football program.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. I think that I've heard something along the same lines. In fact, I mean, we've talked about it on the pod, but they had to dismiss 2 players because of their inability to
adhere
follow
to
direction
protocols,
and follow rules with Jacob Farrell and Bryce Bray. So, I mean, it kind of went under the radar that they released that many and nobody said anything. But I also think at the same time it's kind of become normalized, and there's a lot of people, particularly around here, that just kind of, myself included, that when they release stuff every day, I just roll my eyes.
Well, and I think the thing about it, why that strikes me is because, we spend a lot of time on the pod and on the website just talking about the ups and downs of camp, players voting to go home for a week, practices not being so good. That's with 34 total cases. Like, how difficult has it been in Stillwater to practice? When I saw those numbers, like, I wondered, that's like, I felt kind of bad because I was like, yeah, it hasn't been great. I haven't portrayed it as being all that great at OU, but holy shit. How insane has it been in Stillwater trying to field a practice squad day to day?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'd kind of like to talk to the people that have covered it. I've heard that's been a problem. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, as it stands now, I think, we're closer to football than we've ever been. Hopefully, I just hope, Bob, that we start seeing a more lighter, happier Lincoln Riley.
Oh, he looked depressed yesterday.
He's looked depressed the entire time.
I was almost like, are you doing okay, bud? Like, you talk about the mental health of the players. His mental health yesterday, to me, felt like the worst I've ever seen him.
This has got to be killing him. I mean, it's got to be killing all those guys. I mean, wow. And he wears it on his face. It's just,
yes,
it's
absolutely.
like nothing that we've ever seen, these guys trying to get these guys on the field. So, but I think things are turning up. I do feel better today than I did any time last week. So there you go. All right, guys, I appreciate it as always. We'll have more on the site. We're going to talk to coaches and players throughout the rest of this week. Some more to come. And we're finally asking football questions, which I love. So get more in there. We'll be able to get more out to you about what's going on inside the practices at Oklahoma and all that. So thanks to Josh. Thanks to Eddie. Thanks to Bob. I'm Kerry Murdock, and we'll see you guys back here again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.